Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to share with you a key distinction between Australian market and the American market or the USA market in commercial property. So let's look into it. I would try to attempt in a way that what's the difference? Why you should be investing into an Australian market versus why you should be looking into an American market. Alright, so if you are interested, then let's dive into it. Whenever we talk about Australian market, if you see the historical things, one thing that you'll always come into common, that it's a very stable market. Whether it's a residential property or the commercial property, Australian market is always stable. Now look at the GFC where there was no downturn. Overall the market was stable. And this is one of the key distinction between an American market with Australian market. In retrospect, if you look at to American market, where you will see that there is a downturn, right, during the GFC or the COVID area. What does it mean? It's like it went up and during 2008 it went down. If you just look around it, you will see that in America the market went so down that it's roughly about like 1/10. At times there are areas where you could buy a commercial property which is like 1/10 or 1/20th of the actual value prior to GFC. So this is one of the key things that has happened. In USA the market is cyclical, so it goes from up and then down, then again goes up. When it comes to the Australian market, it is always stable. Australian market is always stable, so it goes in a way, it might fluctuate a little bit but not as much as US market. The second thing that we also need to look into is the return. Now Australian market, the return depends on wherever you are buying. You could get from 4% return to even 6, 7 and 8% return. Again, different state might vary, but roughly about 4 to 8% return is possible in Australian market. Whereas in US market, it depends predominantly the what tier of properties that you are buying. There are some tiers that is like going to give you like 2% or 3%, depends on the major cities or major asset class, which is like, if you buy an office in New York City or even California, then you will see the return is significantly low. Versus if you go to tier 2, because US is a big market, then you could get a significantly higher return. Now, when it comes to the vacancy rate, Australian vacancy rate, commercial property generally very tight, right? Because of so many factors like the construction, labor cost and all other things, generally the vacancy is very low. Even during COVID time, as soon as this coronavirus is gone, in few months and everything came up, which is why right now you see the market, the overall commercial property market is quite high. The vacancy rate is significantly low as compared to an US or in America, that the vacancy rate can vary significantly. And at some cases the vacancy rate can be significantly high, which is why where you are investing in US is an important part, such as because US is a big country. There are so many states, so many different markets, versus in Australia the market is very small. It's 3-4 major players, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, mostly these are the 3 major players, right? So that's how the market is basically smaller in Australia, whereas in US is bigger. Because it is bigger, there is a fluctuations, there are so many different rules each and every state, and because of that it fluctuates. In one state where the market is significantly going up, and the other state is actually going significantly down at the same time. So that is how the rental growth that you get in Australia is always stronger. It's backed by the supply and demand, and of course the rental growth. If you see the last 30, 40, 50 years, the significant rental growth. Right now the industrial property particularly, it is going through the roof, and what used to be like a 10% return, now it's came down to around 6% return. People are chasing that asset class. As compared to in US, that market is quite big, but at the same time that growth can vary significantly. It can grow and at the same time it can drop significantly. So that growth, there is huge fluctuation in US market. In Australia it is always stable. So you should be more focused on investing into Australia simply because it is a robust and it's a stable market. The other thing that also you need to look into in Australia, it's a highly transparent market. As a foreign investor, you can invest into Australia very nicely. On the other side, in US, it's a state specific, they have different laws, and you need to be looking into which state you are actually investing. And for foreign investor, it might be not that much lucrative. And particularly if you look for the taxation point of view, tax structures, it's not very sophisticated that way if you invest into US, whereas in Australia it is much more sophisticated and you can invest it as a foreigner into commercial property. And the next comparison, if you see that in Australia the forex diversification benefits is there, whereas if you look into America, that the forex diversification can be a bit complex, and in fact you will end up paying more tax if you are as a foreigner. So if you are deciding in Australia and if you want to invest into commercial property, looking at the overall, I think your best bet would be invest into local. If you are focusing into American market, then you need to factor all these things, particularly that it goes cyclical. That means it can go up, at the same time it can go down as well. I hope you get some idea about the comparison. By all means, do some research, understand the American market. Now if you are planning to invest into US, because that's the way you get that comparison. And if you want to diversify because you heavily invested into Australia and you want to invest into US, then you focus on all these factors, and if it makes sense in spite of all these things, then go ahead and invest into American market. I hope you find this video is helpful. If you like this video, consider subscribing this channel, turn the notification bell on so you get to see more videos like this, and it also help us to reach out to more people like you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.